Okay. Anthony Amato, Alan Brown, John, Greg Kava, Michelle,
Here.
Jim, Stephanie, I'm here, Michael, Julie, Jen, and Peter. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, the first item on our agenda is for public comments. And it appears that most of the public has all of the public has left. You guys did such a good job. They had no questions or comments. See? All right, great. So no public comment. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is there anything anyone would like to remove? All right, hearing none, the consent agenda passes. All right, moving on to chair's report. I just wanted to comment on a couple of things. I know I'm not the chair, but it's been a big week here at Chippewa. As we sit here, we have 2 sports teams. I know. The basketball's playing, our swimmers are swimming in the state tournament. And I just wanted to comment on that because we are a small school. We are the second smallest in the Berkshire League, which is a pretty small league. We're kind of one of the smallest in the Class S tournaments. And yet our students and our teams do really well. And I just wanted to commend the athletic department here at Chippewa, but also our communities, because kids don't show up in 9th grade and decide to play a sport and are successful. Our students are successful because we've got a lot of volunteer parents and community members who are not even parents who staff our youth programs right from when the kids are little. So it's just another way the community supports it. I have to say, at the swim meets and at the basketball games, I've seen alumni parents, there without their kids, alums from years ago, generations of people showing up. So it's just very exciting to see the community support of our teams. I also wanted to just commend Mr. Dennis and the World Affairs Forum presentation that was this weekend. It was just fabulous. The kids were so well prepared. They talked about immigration, and it was a really fascinating presentation. And again, I wanted to just highlight the fact that there were community members in the audience, not only that were not parents or grandparents or alum, but are community members who don't even have kids in the system and never did. So it just shows that they value what our kids have to say, and that they did a good job of promoting the event because they were here to hear what they had to say. So another shout out to the department and also to the community for the support they give our school. The last thing I just wanted to touch on was the great article about agriscience in, I think that was the Spectrum, right? Just a lot of really good press, a lot of good buzz about the program. I found it interesting, though, as I read it, there's a little bit of confusion, and I think we're going to want to talk about as a board, probably not tonight, but at some point. We really promoted this program as not just the 20th Agriscience, but as like the first of something new and exciting moving towards technology. And so some districts, some of the sending districts seemed excited about that, but waiting to see what was happening. And then it was great. Joe Mardino from Denver, he was like, it's a state-approved program, no problem. It's fine. So we just, I think maybe over the summer, once we've hired the new teacher, or at some point, we really need to kind of talk about how we talk about the agri-science program, what we call it. And, now that it's not ag STEM, but we've really sort of marketed it as something beyond, we need to just really wrap our heads around exactly how we talk about that. So, but it was a great article, even though, there were a few little errors, but yeah, it's all right. It's all right, that happens. It was still good press, I think. The last thing I was going to just mention briefly is that board elections are happening. I don't know how many seats in all the different towns. There are 2 seats in Washington, and I was at the selectmen's meeting last week, and because so there's a nominating meeting in April, and then the nominees will go on the ballot in May, which means that the referendum has to run the full day. I forget what it is, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. or whatever. It can't be a half day because it's an election as well as a budget referendum. So, and it has to be the same in all 3 towns. The time, the other towns, I don't know how Roxbury and Bridgewater handle their board elections, but I just wanted to put that out there so we are aware. That's it.
Right. It's nice when I can check things off my list because Michelle has already taken care of, but it also goes to say how exciting some of these things that are happening are and to celebrate those things. So I also want to congratulate our senior Wilson King, who's a finalist for the National Merit Scholarships. So Wilson, who's exploring many college options, and we look forward to hearing his decisions, but we will be recognizing his accomplishment in May during our board meeting. But the part that was amazing, Ms. Scallo had held a little breakfast to celebrate him, made it a little bit of an intimate setting with his parents, and congratulated him, surprising him that he was a finalist. And the amount of time the parents took to credit the school system. And they spoke to, and Wilson himself spoke about when he was being interviewed and some of the classes he had taken at some college levels, and the conversation that kept coming up and the feedback he kept getting was, you must be educated differently because your ideas and your way to communicate and your comfort in sharing, alternative views is something to be applauded. And to hear that that was something that echoes not only the guiding beliefs and core values, but it was great to hear that come back to us. And again, we're sitting there gushing over him, and he and his family were saying such wonderful things. It was a love fest, and we're quite proud. Additionally, we've been in discussion with the administration at Chippewa, and Kim Gallo and her guidance staff are looking for some fun ways to announce our top 5. We're looking to do some things in front of the entire student body. We have pep rallies and we do all these great things for our athletics, but we want to make certain academics are put right as high and it is celebrated, and we applaud all of those efforts. So we're looking at more ways that how can we celebrate and applaud achievement in our students in all areas. Additionally, the regionalization initiative conversation took place in Hartford on March 1st at 1 o'clock. As you can tell, if you've read any of the news or seen any of it, it has been one that has caused quite a stir in conversation. But over 200 people spoke out, both for, mostly against regionalization efforts proposed by the state. We're going to continue to monitor what is happening, but it is important that you understand that there are currently 3 proposals that were on the legislative floor. And each one has a different impact, but all of them are trying to have the goal of saving money for the state. Again, to echo some of the statements that Michelle has made, the article in the Spectrum did indicate our applications as acceptances. And so I do want to clarify that we did work with our towns. We made certain that whereas we would have loved to accept everyone who had applied, we also recognize the rigors of this program. And so there was a quite extensive list of criteria that need to be met. We do have a wait list of students, and so I don't like anybody whose hopes got dashed or to look that they didn't get accepted when here the newspaper is reporting something else. So I know Lori Travato is going to talk more about that in her presentation later. And to talk about some of the athletic highlights, right now, you are absolutely right. Our boys are playing, are they playing Parish Hill, I believe? No.
Summers.
Oh, we already took care of it. No, I'm teasing in a nice way. We won that one. Hopefully it carries on as they are over in Summers. Additionally, our girls basketball team had traveled to East Windsor Monday to compete in their first round. But I think more than that, I want to recognize the fact that the IAABO basketball officials group have recognized Chippewa's girls basketball team for the Sportsmanship Award. this season. And again, those are things that I'm proud of the points that we score, but I am more proud of our character on the courts. Our swim team had competed at the Berkshire Championships last Sunday and at the Class S state tournaments this past Saturday, and I believe also tonight too. My goodness,
Trials on Saturday.
it's amazing.
They took third at Berkshire's.
Look at this. It's all kinds of, and we know we had our top-seeded senior, Jack Pesci, who had won the Berkshire League Championship in the 200 and the Berkshire League Championship in the 100 backstroke. We also had Zach Tibbetts, who won the Berkshire League Championship in the 100 butterfly. And our freshman, Jessica Kissling, who placed second overall in the 100 backstroke. And it should be noted, I shadowed this girl for the day, and you have to know that when we were planning her shadow date, she said, "You might not want a Thursday. I swim in the morning. You don't want me smelling like chlorine all day." She's so charming. But that said, she broke the freshman record that was held for 27 years by a full second. We are just watching our children get more and more talented. It is impressive, and they're just commitment and the scholar athletes that we have. I cannot appreciate them enough. So again, we want to make certain that we thank all of our coaches for their work these seasons and for also promoting that great character. I also want to thank our town road crews. I'm going to knock on wood that we're done with the stuff from the start. No, I've got this. No. But I want to say to you, their tireless efforts to know that I could wake up at 4 in the morning and call them, and they were right on, and how much time did they need? They provided so much support, and you have to know they were more than willing to do anything to get our students into schools. And I think those are the things where it really is a community that raises our kids, and I need to thank them for their efforts. And tomorrow, March 12th, at Gunn Memorial Library, we will host our second community conversation in Washington. The dates for Bridgewater and Roxbury are still forthcoming, but Kim, Lori Travato, and I will be speaking towards what are the actual numbers with AgriScience. You got to see that in the presentation with the budget, and we want to make certain that we're socializing that, communicating, and making certain people recognize where we are with that. And we have one field trip notification. One of our senior projects involves a trip to Cooperstown, New York. Students in grades 9 through 12 will be traveling to the Baseball Hall of Fame. This trip will occur during April vacation. So they're getting an education even during April vacation. And that concludes the superintendent's report.
Great. Thank you. All right. Treasurer's report?
I actually don't have a whole lot to report today, so that's exciting.
We brought you out.
You put the mouthful forward for us. So the one thing I just wanted to mention, the Finance Committee met, was it last week? Last week or the week before now? My weeks are running together. And the last meeting was just going over our monthly board financials. And I would, if you've been tracking along with the way I've been reporting throughout the year, it would sound different because the last month we were with Bob. His reporting was, of course, a little bit different than what Nicole is doing now. She's using the Tyler system to a higher capacity, so our reports are looking a little bit different. And what we're showing in the reports are slightly different. So if you follow those or you track them, you probably would have some questions about it. The last time I reported, I said we were tracking to about 4.5%. That wouldn't be the same anymore because now the major change that happened in the reports is that Nicole is not including some pre-encumbrances. So I don't want to confuse anyone by reading off numbers because they'll just sound off from last time. So we're kind of figuring out now how we're going to be looking at reports slightly differently and how we'll be reporting those going forward. But to say that we are, in general, tracking normally without giving percentages because they're going to sound different. The monthly financials are tracking and looking as they should. But again, moving forward, we're going to figure out how to add summary reports digitally. Have we done that already, Nicole? Did we post last? We haven't posted anything yet for like that summary page that we talked about, right? Okay, well, that's forthcoming then. We are meeting again on the 27th at 9 a.m. We've moved our meetings to Wednesday mornings, so if anyone ever feels like they've got free time in the morning, let us know. And that's it. That's it for now.
Thank you. Were there any questions? All right, no? All right, we'll go to our committee reports. Education, Michael?
So we did have a very brief meeting this evening, just a half an hour long, and we were able to talk a little bit about some of the curricular changes that you'll be hearing more about coming up, and agenda items for future meetings. So stay tuned.
All right, thank you. Negotiations, Greg?
I have nothing to add to the last report I made at the last meeting because our next session is not until the 21st.
All right, thank you. All right, moving along to the agri-science update. Program status.
And I'm just going to wait to see if we can project our overall program status. Can we pull that up? Just because we'll continue with the graphic that we've been looking at for past couple of months. But while we're pulling that up, I do want to let you know that we did send out our 52 acceptance letters on Monday, February 25th. We received calls almost immediately from some students with their commitment to the program. I believe their last day is Wednesday. So March 13th, we will have our final numbers when it comes to who's looking to join our program. What happens is any open seats then go to our wait list, so we do have that in place, so we'll continue to watch for that. I am proud to say that the state issued our approval for our first payment, so the $3.2 million submission. We'll start the flow of our submissions and reimbursement for our building project, so we are very excited about that. Additionally, we have started our agri-science interviews for teachers. We started last Wednesday, and we will continue tomorrow and Wednesday. Again, we had a pretty nice pool of applicants. We recognize, and we did post it pending budget approval. However, we recognize the need to start interviewing, looking for those right candidates. To be honest, and one of the things that Michelle had spoken to was the fact that we want this program to be cutting edge, and a lot of that is the teachers that we have in place. And actually, I'm going to move this slide down just a bit, so if you'll excuse me as I walk over there. And this, you've already seen the acceptance breakdown. What we did was we showed that as far as how many students had applied and how many letters were accepted from each one of our towns and regions. This way it shows how we got to our 52 applicants, our acceptance letters from our 75. As far as our overall status that we are looking at, again, we had 52 acceptance letters that went out. The curriculum pathways have been completed through grade 12 for all 4 of the pathways, in addition to the environmental and creating some of those sub-paths that we're also looking at. Castle Booze has been contracted for our FF&E review. That right now, Kim Gallo and Nicole Grant, Don and I have been working on our FF&E listing. That is set to go to our building committee on the 25th, and at that time we are looking to have the review occur that first week in April. After the building committee, we are looking to get it for board approval that following Monday. So this will come before the board with our FF&E asks. And what I think you will see in the FF&E is the revisions and changes that were made really gear it to thinking terms of futuristic. You're going to see drones, virtual horses. We have virtual environments that we're creating with goggles, and it's one in which this is about, again, taking it to that next level. We want to make certain that this is not about going into what was old school agri-science. We are looking towards the future, and we want to make certain our students are prepared for that. The budget, you got a chance to see that. We are going to be working with our teachers union. Again, we've looked at what are the agri-science teachers' workload and making the determination for some of these stipends. We're interviewing agri-science teachers, and again, that state payment that was approved was a huge hurdle to overcome, and thank you, Nicole, to her efforts for that. So you can see some of the things that we have that are happening. That will be some next major activities. But really right now, I think our next big vision board material is that timing for our purchase for the FF&E to make certain that all the equipment is in the classrooms as we open up for August 2019. So at this time, I can. Oh, absolutely. Yep. Sorry. Absolutely.
Megan, just looking at that chart, any surprises from your perspective for any of the sending towns?
Sending towns, we do have an extensive wait list on some of our sending towns. I think when we looked at what it was, Danbury, we were very comfortable with the 7. I know that is less than half, but I'm going to say to you we were very comfortable with that number. I think New Milford was a little higher than what was anticipated for the acceptance. And again, we're continuing to work with our partnering towns. Brookfield typically does not send 4, but when we told them and had a conversation with the superintendent, he was happy to have, typically they've sent between 2 and 3. They were happy to go with 4 for us. To be completely honest, when looking at this, our biggest surprise was our numbers. That really was the amount of demand we had in the program. And there are some students that were not accepted into the program itself. However, will have access to some of the classes if they do still have the interest and do want to take the class. They can be, if they are 9th graders, considered the following year for agri-science acceptance.
What's the other?
That we have to hold. There's an agreement with another town.
Okay.
No. I know, right? Shh. You had to ask that quick. No.
Come back.
Does anyone have any questions on the program status? No? All right. Greg, do you want to bring us up to date on the building status?
Yes, I would be delighted to. It's very, very good that we are getting that first $3.2 million from the state, because your building committee continues to diligently spend this money. The construction project is continuing apace. Unfortunately, I don't have any pictures for you tonight, but if you were to look in the north end of the building, you would see that I believe all of the cinder block walls, except for one, have been completed to the roof deck. We have other walls that have gone in that are metal studded walls that will be sheetrocked, and the only reason the sheetrocking isn't 100% complete is we're waiting for inspections of what goes in the walls. In addition, they are doing inspection tests on all of the water lines. They do those with air, not water, for the pressure tests, and then that area will start to get closed in, and we will start to, I believe it's about 3 to 4 weeks before they start actually painting the walls and moving in equipment. So the kitchens will be delivered to us. The school, the new agri-science kitchen room will be delivered to us sometime in the late spring, I believe, is the first room that actually is going to come in. But there might still be a couple of little things before we can actually occupy it that have to be done, some testing on some of the infrastructure that still will have to go on with that. So the north end is really making tremendous progress. The south end of the building is also making tremendous progress. They've completed the corridor that goes down the middle of the south end, and they will be framing out the walls shortly for the science labs in there, for the 4 science labs in that part of the building. Well, actually, one of them is a room for plant sale and stuff related to the greenhouse. If you were to look out the north end onto the site, you will see that we have dug the hole for the pump house. This hole is 18 feet deep. It is the largest, deepest hole we will dig on the property. We will have a 50,000 gallon water tank. Now I've forgotten the size of the water tank that goes in there, but it's 75 feet long, the tank itself. The good news, and the way they dug this hole is they literally advanced metal sheets into the ground that acted as shoring, and then dug the dirt out from inside of it. And that way the hole doesn't fall in on anybody that's working on it. The good news, and this is spectacular news, is we didn't know, we had done borings, and we had hoped, our borings indicated there was no ledge present. They dug an 18-foot hole and found not horrid soil, rocks, ledge. They found some of the best soils we've seen on the site. And it was easy, and there were no issues or problems. We are hoping that the remaining digs that are down about 6 to 7 feet are going to go similarly well. And once we are finished digging holes on the site and digging trenches for various infrastructure, that we will have exhausted the greatest opportunities to dig into the contingency funds that we have been spending. That we made a gambit to spend in order to make sure we got the maximum amount of our program elements in, and we put them all the ones we had as add-alts, we put them back in the program except for 1 or 2 that I think were alternate to other alternates. And the net effect is it looks like we've made a good decision there, because I think we're in reasonably good shape. There's still possibility of, we still find little things here and there that we have to spend money on. We approved some change orders tonight, and we continue to approve change orders for relatively small amounts of money, some of them which actually are money back to us on some of the change orders that we've spent. So we think that we're in reasonably good shape. The job is still in excess of $1 million under budget, and it is on time. Nothing has changed the timing on the job. We are planning to finish it on time, if not possibly a little tiny bit early. And we full well hope to bring the job in on budget. And it would be nice if we were under budget, but we expect that we're going to have some more change orders as we go through it. But the construction is really going well. We will be commencing the digging of the footing holes for the north addition and the greenhouse addition within probably a week. That will commence. I would expect to see steel on site in April. And then those buildings will start going up in the late spring. The north addition, the greenhouse, well, what happens is we have to put all the greenhouse infrastructure in. It'll be about 6 weeks before the greenhouse company comes in and takes care of the greenhouse going up. And then the ag animal building will probably also start sometime in late April or early May. So that's sort of where we are on those buildings. As soon as classes are over for the year, which the weather seems to be cooperating, we had March and February. I was afraid we were going to get February and March. We've gotten some snow, but we're getting some decent temperature, and so that's been very good to us. And so we're hoping to continue that site work, to keep it rolling. It's been going all winter long. You've seen some large holes. We have now also changed the parking configuration. The student parking has been moved to the far eastern end of the lot. The entry has been moved closer to the front, and the entry to that north parking lot is now along the new road that will be coming in as part of the AgSTEM improvements. I believe we will be able to very easily solve the problem we had at athletic events where everyone parked out front and parked all on top of each other and no one knew the north lot was there. We have some signage, and we're anticipating, because it's very visible, it's right in front now, and the way in is a lot easier, that we're going to probably get some buy-in on that and solve that problem. So we think we're in pretty good shape on that. And then I don't know that I have any other significant construction issues or problems that have come up. So we're in, like I say, very good shape at this point. Michelle?
I was just wondering, you mentioned the parking and then athletics, and made me think, do you know how the build is going to affect spring athletics? The track, I'm envisioning this building starting to go up in April, so if you could speak to
Well, certainly the use of the track and that area is not going to be altered to any significant degree, although there may be challenges of how to get there as we do work around the pond and between the pond and the track area and the school. As far as the other athletic fields, I think they have already made plans for more off-site athletics than on-site. I can't give you the full details on that because I don't have the schedule.
It seems like Megan might know.
No, I do know through Kim and Matt's work with O&G that they moved the discus throwing so it wouldn't go into the construction area. So they're doing some heads up. I know originally Matt was looking to do some more away games, but I believe in working with O&G, they've found ways, but I think it was how do we manage the timing of each one of the events, because we are a little bit cramped for space and so the hours that were involved. Kim, do you want to?
Track is the only sport that's going to be off-site. We talked with OG just this morning, we have a weekly construction meeting, and the access to viewing around the tennis courts is going to be completed this week, as well as just some skimming of some of the mud, so that you can walk to the track a little bit more safely. We're going to keep people out of the construction areas, but it's absolutely doable. So it's just track that will be off-site.
Off-site,
No home meets.
but they're able to practice.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, it comes down to the timing of the events, knowing that students wouldn't be able to get from one side to the other in order to do some of these things. So Matt and Kim were ahead of the game on this.
Yeah, the ironic thing is the track and the infield and the soccer field are the only areas of the fields not being touched by Ag STEM development. But the problem is you bloody well can't get there, and that's the difficulty.
Yeah, irony.
And middle school baseball, wait, they're in the outfield, that's okay? Middle school baseball is fine? Okay.
They might have a bit more of a circuitous route to get there, but after all, they're athletes.
They're fine.
The,
All right,
the
great.
one thing I ask people to remember is I was going over the plans for when this thing is finished, and for probably the first time that this school has been here afterwards, you're going to have spectacular access to athletic fields. Because first of all, you're going to have a small amount of parking that's been moved right near the fields, and then you're going to have pathways to get to them rather than having to schlep
through
through
the
the
mud?
field and the mud and everything else. They're going to be stone dust pathways that are handicapped accessible, that are going to make all of those fields accessible for us. So this is all really good stuff if you can just be patient and wait another summer. Because once we are through this coming summer, that work is going to be finished. And, so it'll be next fall will be the time when we'll really shine. The other thing, I'm hearing rumors that north parking lot might get finished earlier than we expected. So that's really good news if that happens. So there you go. That's the Ag STEM construction project. Jim.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment about the progress of the work. Living within hearing distance of this place, I can attest that when I opened my door to let my dogs out or to get the paper at 6 o'clock in the morning, these guys are up here working. I can hear the backing up and the beeping going on. So when it's 0 degrees out, these guys were here at 6 o'clock in the morning, every morning. So.
Yeah, I hope, Jim, they haven't disturbed you too badly across
No,
the
no,
street. But the one thing I will say is that I come to the site, I meet with Tim every week, every Friday, and I tour the buildings and the site and whatnot. And what I have seen is really diligent work. I've seen guys really engaged, really working, doing measuring, and one other piece that we have is for the entire project, we spent $5,000 to have a materials tester on site every day. They keep an eye out on whether to make sure that every time a block wall is being done, that the interstices that are not used for wire chases get filled with concrete and rebar. And the concrete is tested daily, and the rebar is tested to make sure it complies with our specs. And I think they found a type of rebar that was the wrong brand or something, and that got swapped out for what was in our specs. And so we actually are checking everything that's done, and that's also, I think, producing a really good result in that I think we're going to get what we bargained for in a big way. So again, this is what's ongoing. This is what's happening. And Jim, I'm glad to hear they're here at 6 in the morning. My guess is that they're going to be doing some work on off times that we hadn't originally inspected in order to make sure the project is delivered on time or early. And that's part of what they're doing.
It's fantastic.
Our construction manager is doing a spectacular job. Anyone who has any doubt as to whether O&G is earning their reputation, they are earning their reputation on this job. They have kept this thing really moving fast and really moving well. And they've got good people out there, and the people that have been hired to do the job are doing a nice job. So we're very pleased.
Great. Are there any other questions or comments? No? All right. Financial status? Thank you, Greg. It's great.
Well, Greg and Megan stole my thunder in letting you all know that the payment application was approved. That's first and foremost. This week, last week, my office processed application 7, which was approved at the last building committee meeting. And later this week, on Friday, we will learn what our new bond rating is, our permanent bond rating for the district, so that we can go to market with our bonds and see what kind of interest rate we'll get.
Great. Thank you. Are there any questions? No? All right. We'll move on. Next, we have agri-science process and applications. Lori Travato.
Good evening, everybody. So it's been quite a journey for us in the program, and what I'm going to share with you tonight is what that journey looked like. So we did have a total, of course, of 75 applications, but we, as mentioned before, had 52 that we've accepted. So I'm thrilled to share with you the process of the selection of the students for our agri-science program. And I'd like to begin by sharing what struck the committee most about the applicants. The applicants were a group of students that truly demonstrated a true desire for the agri-science world. The application contents included a strong alignment to career interest in the agri-science area, including connections to the agri-science community. Students were very interested in what our agri-science program has to offer them for the future. There was a natural desire to be part of our agri-science program, which felt really great when we were speaking to them later on. Their letters of recommendation shined as the students' character came through as an integral part in the layering process that went with the application. So the process, of course, included an analysis of the application, and it was a comprehensive vetting process using a rating instrument that resulted in a triple scoring rubric. Our technology team aided in the creation of the formula with our staff for a very thorough rubric. Through the vetting process, each student was graded 3 times. There was numerical value given to each student based on a specific formula. The grading included school attendance, their grades with test results, the analysis of each letter of recommendation, which included students, teachers, counselor, and a non-relative. I personally interviewed all 75 applicants. 75 essays were also read by our team, and we looked at even the discipline and the involvement in the students' applications in their school and in their community. The interview process truly allowed for students to reflect and go deeper into their desire to pursue an education and then eventually a career in the agri-science world. It was an opportunity for them to demonstrate their communication skills, which will be vital as they represent us at the state and national level in agri-science competitions. I wanted to verify during the interview discussion that there was a complement to the written words in their applications. The interviews were very powerful as a component during this vetting process. It truly gave us an opportunity to re-engage the applicant's excitement in the program, and I was able to better know the applicant as a whole person. We offered a shadow day, and I was so pleased to see that over 80% of the applicants were able to attend. We offered 4 separate days.
That's amazing.
It was pretty amazing. They were all paired with a Chapag student, and they experienced an entire day here in our Chapag world for the true Chapag experience. They started and ended their day with us. I wish to share with you some anecdotal feedback. I visited with the applicants at the end of their day for a reflective discussion. The common theme shared by all 4 groups was that they felt as if they were truly in a collaborative, trusting environment. Students were impressed with the relationships and interactions between the teachers and the students in the classroom. It truly was emanated from them that this school is culturally connected and open, welcoming, and trusting. It was very evident. So the review of the applicants and their acceptance letters were, of course, like I said, team reviewed. Then we sent out application acceptance letters to the 52 applicants, which you have already heard about. And then we have a wait list. Their commitment date is in 2 days. March 27th will be the new student informational meeting, which we are truly looking forward to. As you've also heard, tomorrow night, we're at March 12th, there's going to be a community conversation at Gunn Library. Superintendent Bennett, Principal Gallo, and myself will be there. I'm actually very thrilled to share with you that we have made and established partnerships with Cornell, UConn, and Yale so that we may be able to take students in the future to their campus so they can learn about the latest research that they're doing. We are planning a celebratory reception for accepted families in the springtime. The recruitment process has truly been a success story, being another milestone as we prepare for opening day. There wasn't a parent, student, or counselor who reached out to me that I didn't get a response to them within an hour. It has been a true pleasure for me to showcase our program to other schools, and I look forward to additional milestones. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions?
Julie?
Yeah, just a clarification. So there was 75 applications. We accepted 52, or we sent out 52 acceptance letters, and then 23 were waitlisted. So does that mean that if the 52, if some of them don't accept, that we're willing to take every single person who applied, or am I reading that wrong?
So we did waitlist students, and we actually have it in a pool for them to look at. Megan, do you want to elaborate a little further?
What happens is they were ranked, and we have students, and so if a student declines the offer for admission, we go to that next student down the list. However, we do have to look, and if it's a Brookfield student, we look at what is the Brookfield wait list, et cetera. So we do have, how it's weighted out. We make certain that we're also finding balance within that, but that the 23 are at this point ranked, and that way we can kind of go down the list as far as our acceptance.
So is it fair then to say that nobody was rejected?
It's fair to say that. However, further you get down the list, it is more difficult and a challenge. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, John? We have the list four.
Four and four were accepted.
Correct.
Yeah, it's kind of alarming, especially assuming that the freshman class is going to be, what was 50? How many sophomores?
We have 7 sophomores that were accepted. So we have 45 freshmen.
45 freshmen.
Correct.
Okay, that's good
Yep.
because there is an attrition.
And that's one. And if you notice when Nicole showed her future slide, we actually even accounted for a little attrition in our numbers. We went incredibly conservative when we did our budgeting, so we even accounted for some of that. That's where it is especially important that we hire the right teachers, because that's the thing that is going to save us from some of those attrition numbers. And that's also important when we're looking at our list of students. Because it's rigorous, we don't want our students to fail. The last thing I want to offer is a discontinuous high school experience for any student because they came to Chippewa and it turns out it was too difficult, and now going back to their sending school and feeling like they were not successful in high school. So those are things in which, when we do the ranking and when we're figuring out the academic performance, those things weigh in.
And I know you were trying to capture some of the non-AWOG waitlisted for the sophomore class. What happens next year if some of these students, these 23 who are on the wait list, do they have to reapply for next year if they want to start as?
They would have to reapply, but the good news with that is we have that information. They supplied it to us. Whereas non-AWOG, we would have fallen into FERPA restrictions, and therefore we could not get their wait list. We can continue to hold the applications that were submitted to us. If we want to do a personal outreach, we have the ability to do that. Again, with our students who were not accepted, that are Chippewa students, they have the opportunity to take the exploratory class. If they continue to show an interest, in potentially if there's anything where academically we can support them in any way, that they become a stronger contender, they can reapply. And so our guidance counselors know and recognize, so there's a personalization that happens.
That's smart, because that's the safety net if we fail to get the projected freshman enrollment for next year. Yeah. Thanks.
It's funny, we talked about this before, and I didn't think about it, I guess, but as far as the non-AWOG waiting lists that we're restricted by FERPA from seeing, FERPA is clearly is a privacy issue. Isn't it simple enough for non-AWOG to ask permission from those families to then send their information to us, as opposed to, obviously, FERPA would restrict them from sending us the information without asking the families?
That's where we worked with the counselors from some of our sending districts in order to say if they knew of any students who were waitlisted, did not get in, if they could share the information. So we did take it from the approach of working with our sending schools. It's obviously in our infancy, and as non-AWOG was also figuring out their new configuration, we weren't trying to tax them as well. So we were developing our partnerships with our sending towns and also saying, hey, if you remember anyone that, we are looking for 10th graders as well, incoming 10th graders.
Michael?
Just a question about those exploratory classes that some Chippewa students who are not in the agri-science program may have access to. Is it one class in particular that you're thinking of? Is it many classes that they would have the opportunity to this coming year potentially enroll in?
So we do have 2 elective courses that are being offered. Is a food science course with the health teacher, a co-taught course, and there's also a floral art course that's being taught with the art teacher that has some potential for them to be enrolled in. And if there was an open spot in an agri-science 9th grade course that happens to occur, then they would have that opportunity to reach out to their school counselor and see if it makes sense in their schedule.
And when you say open spot, are you anticipating literally like 1 or 2 positions maybe open to non-agri-science students, or is that really impossible to answer, at least this
I
week?
had a crystal ball.
That's really the scheduling factor. We do have caps in our classes. We recognize agri-science labs cannot have more than 15 students within them. So there are certainly things that we're watching and monitoring. But for us, if there's an open seat, it's one in which we'd love to have everybody have the experience, but we also recognize priority goes to students who are within the program.
I just have a question. You were mentioning the schedule, and that reminded me, have you started building the schedule, and have we figured out how to fit agri-science in to the schedule?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you.
Lori has been working very hard. Lori Ferreira has been working very hard with Lori Travato and me to build the schedule in a way that makes sense for students. And we have the skeleton. It's been entered into the computer and will be ready. The counselors have about 2 more weeks before they get all of the course requests in, and then we'll get ready to do the first schedule run.
All right, great. Thank you.
Yep.
Any further questions?
I just and this is wonderful and probably the last thing you want to think about right now, but I was just thinking about the timing and moving forward, and I think I remember at one point we mentioned wanting to start recruiting earlier for especially some of the private school students, hitting them in the spring of 7th grade, I think, because they're already making those decisions. Or maybe it was just earlier fall. I don't remember, but
I can say that earlier fall we did meet with Rumsey Hall, and they have invited us to come earlier in the season, starting in the fall, back to coincide with the people that also come in to recruit from the private high schools. Okay. So we've already established some relationships there, and it's in the fall, in the earlier fall season.
So you don't have to turn it around and start again in the spring. All right, that's good news.
If it makes sense.
I know.
We'll look into it, but
never too early to start thinking about the next class.
It's always going to be proactive.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, no other questions? All right. That concludes all the new topics there. We have some action items to move on to. The first one being graduation date, establishing a date. That's you.
What are you guys doing June 15th? So we'd like to, at this time, establish our graduation date for June 15th. We do recognize our last day of school is June 17th for students, but at this time, we would like to seek approval for a June 15th graduation date.
Do I have a motion? Okay. Jen?
Second.
Do I have a second? Greg seconded. Any discussion? No. All right. All those in favor, say aye. Those opposed? Anyone abstaining? All right, it passes unanimously.
She asked you whether or not you set the date or not.
All right. So that has been approved unanimously. Thank you. Oh, gosh, my computer died. All right, second reading for policy 6142-101, student nutrition and physical activity. The only thing I would mention is that it is before us in the exact same form it was presented. There were no recommended changes. So what you see in your packet is from the first reading. And I don't have any further comments, so if someone would like to move to approve. Alan moved. Michael seconded. All right, is there any discussion? Greg?
Yeah, just how come this didn't go on to the consent agenda? Was there some problem with it the first time through? I can't remember.
I don't think so. I think there was just a lot of discussion, and so it was not put on the consent agenda just in case. It probably could have. Well, there was a lot of conversation, but there was no actual change made. So I'm not really sure. We're still kind of figuring that out. So do you feel that this could have gone on the consent agenda?
I don't know. I for some reason I don't recognize the issue that came up last time.
We talked about cupcakes and celebrations. I think you were the only one who voted against it.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
okay with the cupcake, the non-food celebration. So I think you satisfied me on that.
Okay. That's great. That's good news. I'd have to get administrative approval. All right, is there any other further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, oh, sure, John?
There was a codicil where certain events would be approved.
Right. We have some curricular events that may receive. Some of the events that would be considered for food, I know that, take for example, Booth Free does an annual pie fest that's part of, their traditional celebrations. Whether or not they do something that regarding Thanksgiving, working with families. So sometimes it has to do with learning about the cultures. So that may be something that's an exception to it. But again, it would be one that is discussed with the administrator. Field day, taking a look at the different allergies, working with the administrator on what foods can be brought in, like watermelon. But having the conversations with them on what can and cannot be approved.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. All those in favor of a second reading of policy 6142, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? All right. Motion passes unanimously. All right. Next is first reading of policy 6146, requirements for graduation. You'll see this at the end of your packet for tonight. I'm just going to go through a few highlights here. You'll see there's a lot of yellow language. That is because the state passed new graduation requirements. They've been working on this, I think, for years and continually update. So a lot of the yellow language, well, or almost all of it is mandated. Some of it is just updates to the language that CABE sent us, and we like to try to stay uniform. So if you look at the beginning, they talk about establishing a graduation date and the required 180 days. And then there's some other language about requirements. If you scroll down, you'll see a section in green. That means that the committee added it because it was language that was in our previous policy that we needed to carry forward, but it's in a different place and it looks a little bit different. This is talking about our specific requirements for graduation that include 30 hours of community service and learner outcomes. Those are unique to Chippewa. All right, then you'll see that the next large section has all been struck. That was what was in our old policy, and that was how we had laid out the graduation requirements. And if you continue to scroll down, the next section of yellow will highlight the new requirements for graduation. And I'll point out a couple of things. The state has added 0.5 credit for health. They've also added one more credit required in STEM, the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. The one credit in world language is new. They were going to add 2 credits in a previous draft, and they've backed that down to 1 credit, but that is still a new requirement. And then if you look at the last piece, number 6, it says 1 credit of mastery-based diploma assessment. It's sort of vague, but that is the state moving towards some sort of project, and that is the perfect place for the senior project to fall. So it actually mirrors what we're already doing really nicely. Then if you continue turning or scrolling down, there is more yellow language. The state is expanding the definitions, different ways credits can be met. Through online coursework, institutions of higher education. They're also, as you continue to scroll down, mine's in different order, but virtual learning, career learning, cross-curricular, work-based learning. So they're allowing some other experiences to be counted for credit. So that's nice. We've been trying to move a little bit towards some mastery-based learning, and they're allowing that. Any of these credits, though, must be approved by the guidance department and administration. I think that, where is that statement? We have that in there. Oh, I'm missing that. I'll find it at some point. And then as you scroll down, academic advancement program, that was in our previous policy. It's not new. Program of study, that was in our previous policy. Connecticut Seal of Biliteracy, we added that last year. That was new last year. And at the very end, Pipeline for Connecticut's Future program is an optional addition that the committee chose to leave in because it allows for a partnership with local businesses and on-site training, and we thought that something might develop, especially in the agri-science program. So we liked that language was coming from the state, and we chose to leave that as something that we could move towards. So that's a highlight of the changes that have been added. That's a lot. It's a long policy. I recognize that. Do I have a motion to approve?
I think Greg's had his hand up.
No, I'll wait for the motion. I have questions.
Okay.
I'll move to approve 6146 for first reading.
All right, Jim moved. I'll give it to Lisa. Sorry, I was looking that way. So Jim moved, Lisa second. All right, discussion, questions. Greg?
Yeah, I guess I'm having a hard time because you changed the formatting of this stuff when you struck all those the course credits section and in favor of sticking it into a paragraph, and I may be missing something because, you know, the eyes don't see as well as they did when I was younger. And that is, I see that you have basically changed the way you refer to what courses have to be taken. For example, we used to require in the humanities and the arts 9 credits. We require 9 credits now, but in the old days it looks like we decided you needed 4 credits of language arts, 3 credits of social studies, and 1 credit of fine arts, and now you could take all language arts and not any fine art or social studies, according to this.
So I'm going to just make one comment, and then Megan might be able to expand. But so this is the language taken from the statute, and what we've found is that the courses within are often changing, so you need to go to the guidebook or the student handbook, and that's where it will lay out what exactly is required within the humanities or within STEM. So the policy is a little more general, and it does look different. I recognize that, but this is what the state is putting forward, and the course book and the course catalog is what we need to keep up to date.
Yeah, but does the Board of Education approve that course catalog and that guidebook?
That's a good question.
I don't think we do, because I've never seen it come here in 10 years I've been on this board. And so it raises a question of have we gutted the requirements? Have we allowed that, have we abdicated our responsibility as a Board of Education to make sure that there's a fairly broad education? The other thing is I can't find where the senior project is mentioned in here. That used to be a requirement, and it's no longer a requirement, the way I read this. And I don't think that was intended at all.
That was number 6 in the new language that's coming from the state.
A one-credit mastery-based diploma assessment?
Yes, that is where we're.
It's legal mumbo jumbo.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know, but
Project.
it raises a question of whether we are required to adopt their terminology, or whether we could clarify it by saying what it means. At Chippewa, that one-credit mastery-based diploma assessment is accomplished via our senior project. Just because I don't want to, I think there's something about the board having required these broad-based things, unless our superintendent and staff believe that we should eliminate this because there may be flexibility we'd like to give students to have so that they could take all social studies classes and no art or English. And I don't think that's what's intended. I don't think that's what you're going to let them do. But it does raise a question. I think if I were a citizen looking at this, I would say, my God, you have turned a broad-based liberal arts and sciences education into a much more amorphous blob.
Well, we weren't trying to do blob form. We were trying to have flexibility. There were a couple things that we were trying to take into consideration. Number one, students who are transferring to Chippewa, and also recognizing our agri-science students, their SAE hours that they're going to have to complete throughout their entire time. It's significant. I think it's 150 hours each year, except for freshman year, it's 50. And that really is going to be they're going to have to still present on it. We're still going to have it look and morph into our senior project. However, we don't want to back ourselves into a corner in which we're looking for exceptions. We also recognize that students who may transfer to us sophomore year, if they have different course offerings, how it looks, we want to have a little bit of flexibility. But I also agree with you in some of the state language actually does even go on to say mathematics, including in algebra, a geometry, and I think it had to have an algebra 2 as well, and then left it open for some others. So it does have some state requirements within some of the coursework as well. Teresa, do you want to speak to any of that?
Greg, we're on the same page. So in the green language is where it says that the actual requirements are in the course catalog. And yes, there are 4 years of English. And yes, there are 3 years of social studies. But the state's intent to not be so specific is to allow for a personalized learning experience, because there can be some exceptions that are well warranted. And Megan was just talking about that. So the course catalog does honor exactly what you just said. But if we change a title of a course or we change a sequence to have it be this specific and rigid, we'd have to constantly come back. So we wanted to make sure that we're within statutory requirements and that it is clearly articulated in the course catalog.
Okay, well, I would really prefer to see a report made to the board every year that indicates what I'd like to see all across the board for every student in the high school, not identified specifically by student name or anything, but I'd like to know the educational programs that went through here. I don't want to find out that in the name of flexibility, we let a significant number of students out of here without fine arts, or we let a significant number of students out without some of the other things we've got in here. I know we need to try to deal with a variety of students coming in and a whole raft of things, but pretty soon those students are going to have been native Chippewa students. They will have started here in the 9th grade, and they will have taken 4 years, and there's no reason why we can't do that. And just because the state wants to upend the educational requirements in order to solve problems that are very different depending on what school system you've got, doesn't mean that we need to take an excellent school system and in the name of flexibility, have it be anything other than clear. We expect a lot of our graduates out of this program. I know that's what the administration wants to do. I know you want to have high expectations and you want excellence. And I'm all for that, but I just want to, I would like to see an annual report explaining all of the different educational paths of students as they're going through the school. Because I'd like to know whether or not this flexibility is resulting in a hollowing out of the program. Not because you intend to do it, but because the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And a lot of times you're trying to provide flexibility for someone, and if that kind of messes with the program, because one of the problems you have is when you're trying to make all kinds of individual assessments, is anybody looking at the overall pattern? And that's what I'm afraid will slide. It will be from the best of intentions. And if at the end of the day we're not providing that quality education that's been associated with Chippewa, it'll be more to the pity.
So understood, you're really looking for the actual percent of the graduating class that had 4 years of English, that had 3 years, that are actually meeting those particular requirements. I think that's very doable. If the board wanted to add that particular language, we would certainly, look at that. I think you're not asking something that's unreasonable.
Well, it should be very easy to do. You should
Absolutely.
just be pressing a button in Power School and it should be spitting out a report. This should not be anything anyone needs to spend 11 seconds on, other than making sure the report comes out of the machine. So,
Yeah.
Alan?
Yeah, I'm not sure that it's primarily a matter of reporting to the board, but I'm wondering whether it's what's binding on a student. In other words, Greg brings up the point that if it only says you have to have 9 credits in the humanities, then, what Greg talks about reporting to the board would be to clarify exactly how each student is setting up their schedule and so on and so forth. But what do we have that's binding such that a student can not refuse to take anything but history and never take language arts or art or anything like that? In other words, our policy has always been slightly less flexible because that's what's binding. So without being in policy, and if it's going to be in the guidebook or handbook or elsewhere or in regs, are those as binding for to prevent a situation where a particular student or student and family and their lawyer decides to say, hey, we don't have to take this because it's not in your policy. So that, I think that's less in terms of our authority as the board to review every year, but just a question as to what is there to make sure that what the administration intends actually happens now if we take it out of policy. Do you have that?
Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, we have it in green. But I think that for us, when we're looking at that, we're trying to come at it from two ways. We want to make certain that at some point we are not prescribing what a student is going to do in high school. We want to make certain that we have some of those opportunities for that personalization. We still have to meet those state requirements. And one of the things that we applauded is that when we came to the 2023 requirements, we really didn't have to do a lot of changes because of the things that you have put in place, because of the requirements we have for our graduates. We weren't looking to water that down. We were looking to make certain we were providing some flexibility within some of the offerings. Again, it is recognizing that there's always exceptions to the rules. And so how much do we want to define to paint ourselves into a corner? That said, again, the things that have been crossed out really aren't hard to put back in. They're currently in our course handbook. We currently, if we want to put that up for approval every year, where you relook at the course, the handbook, and we have that where that becomes a way to monitor and staple, and then we have a concluding statement at the end in order to monitor that those things had been achieved. Again, this is about transparency, but trying to also allow for some flexibility, because we are inviting more students in. We are creating a new program within our school that is going to have more students from beyond our borders. So.
Alan?
But I didn't mean in terms of monitoring. I just meant more in terms of enforcing. Because you want to be flexible, but as I said, you don't have a situation where you are not. I think the intention is that we've had higher standards, so that now what we've done is we've taken our higher standards and we've switched to the more flexible, indeed, but perhaps. Not that they're less standards, but they might be less standards. They might be standards that are too flexible, and therefore, is there any way of enforcing? If you take out the more specific language out of policy, is there any way that you could enforce the certain things that we require of our students, whether we're being flexible or inflexible or not?
Well, I was just going to point, if you look at the green language, it says specific credit requirements are described in the yearly high school digital course catalog.
Right. But as I said, is that catalog?
Is that enough? So
Is
you're
that
looking,
legally binding on the students?
Right, right.
So that we don't end up with kids who choose to take an awful lot of woodwork.
well, it does say that anything, you can't take woodwork.
I know, but
that won't satisfy their language.
I know.
All right, but it says that whatever their course completion has to be approved by the counseling department and the school administration. So I don't think there's a lot of wiggle room for someone to take all 9 credits in language arts and none in social studies or fine arts. I don't even think our schedule is really built to accommodate that. So, but I do hear what Greg is saying. I think it would be really interesting to kind of keep an eye on this, because we're curious as well. The agri-science students, what their schedule looks like, how they are able to participate or not able to participate in the arts. So, or other technology components of the schedule. So, I think the way I read it, it's covered, and taking a look at the course catalog each year wouldn't be a bad idea. At least maybe the education committee could kind of look at that and report back to us if it changes year to year. We don't need to write into policy every time they change a psychology to an economics or to a government or something, and we've done that in the past where humanities have changed and East-West became something else, and so the courses morph over time, and I guess it would be good to hear about those. With each year, the course offerings look a little bit different based on the staff that we have and the directions we're moving, but I think this is binding enough, having that the policy says that you have to do what's in the course catalog. That would be my interpretation. John?
Yeah, just out of curiosity, completing a world language course provided by a nonprofit organization, has anyone in the region participated? What would be an example, like a ethnic club? Or? No?
Someone goes to Hebrew school,
Yeah,
for example.
that's what I thought of,
Their
too.
parents are paying, they have this mastery, so the state is allowing that recognition.
It's a great possibility. We should encourage that.
Makes me crazy. And there is a state test, the biliteracy test. So is there a mastery? Do they have to demonstrate some sort of mastery to get the credit? No, they have to have a certain score. They do need to have a certain score on that assessment. Right. So there's an assessment. So it's not like you can just show up and say, well, I occasionally took this class and you get credit. You do have to take a test. So it is monitored. Yeah. Are there any other questions? All right, all in favor of passing 6146 requirements for graduation for a first reading, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Passes unanimously. Oh, that's exciting. That was a hard one. Committee, we worked on that for a long time with the committee, trying to put CABE and the state and everything together. All right, we're going to move on now to some bylaws. Bear with me for a second. I got to get back into my folder. So we're going to start with 9325.2 agenda format. 9325.2. Why am I not seeing it? Oh, there it is. Okay. So as you look at this bylaw, what's in black was our old policy. Red is new language. There's some strikeouts. The basic idea behind this, you'll see that the first sentence that's struck is that it says, "At all regular meetings of the board, the order of business shall be." And that was just very prescriptive, and we weren't actually following that anymore. If you read the sentence above, it says, "may include the following items." Gives us a little more flexibility to have committee reports or not, depending on what type of meeting we're having. So we went through the list and put together most of the things that we currently have on our agenda and allowed for a little more flexibility.
We approve 9325.2 for first reading.
Thank you. All right, Jim moved, Greg seconded. Do I have any questions or conversation? Well done. Thank you. Wow. All right then. Well done. I know. Good job, committee. Excellent. So all those in favor of 9325.2 agenda format as proposed, please say aye. 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 Those opposed? Those abstain? All right, it passes unanimously. Next, we have 9325.2. Sorry, 9222 censure. Oh, okay, you have it in hard copy. Thanks. We are on 9222, which is censure. Look, oh, there it is. All right. So this one, it's important to read the notes at the top because resignation, the whole section about resignation was moved to the election section, talking about how you get on the board and then how you can resign off the board. So, so it's not that we're not going to have that. It's just going to be in a different place. So then if you look down to the censure part of the policy, black is what we already had. Red were the recommendations for editing to this policy. Greg?
Move we adopt proposed bylaw 9222 on censure.
Do I have a second? Lisa? Sorry, Jen. Do I have any questions or comments? Oh my goodness, Greg, whatever you had for dinner tonight is what you need to always eat. All right. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? And those abstain. We have one against. All right. Next, we have bylaw 9326, minutes and vote recording. 9326. Oy, oy, oy. All right, one thing I wanted to point out, was it this policy? No. Oh, yeah, it's this one. All right. So the work of the committee, actually, I have to commend Anthony for doing a lot of work before we got to committee. But the color coding, so red language is, at least for the most part, he was usually pretty consistent. Red is coming from CABE, blue was coming from Avon, black was what we already had, and in this one we had some green, and I'm thinking that was the committee's recommendations, or it was some kind of morph of.
Blue, I think, was CABE and blue's Avon?
Yeah, I think that's the committee's recommendations, which we may have taken from other places, not just off the top of our heads. But so that's sort of the color coding. It's also important to look at the top of this one. So in order to be in alignment with CABE's numbering, we were switching this 9326 is going to be minutes and vote recording because that aligns with CABE's numbers, and tape recording of board minutes, which was something that we had put together a couple of years ago, will now be 9326.1. So it's just a numbering change. It's just going to come after this. So I just wanted to point that out. And also that the 9325.4 voting in minutes will be deleted because it's going to be replaced with this 9326. So as you look at this policy, the red is from CABE, and a lot of it aligns with state statute on posting minutes and agendas and when you have to do it. And the blue language, the recording secretary, we added because, and we talked about that in our officers' roles and responsibilities, because it is not actually our secretary that is usually keeping minutes, but it is our recording secretary, and we defined that in our previous policy. So we clarified that here in this policy. I think those are sort of the big, I mean, if you go, as you scroll down the second page, it's like a rainbow of additions and deletions, but.
I move we approve 9326 for first reading.
Thank you, Jim. Is there a second? Alan seconds. Is there any further discussion, questions? No? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Any abstain? All right, thank you. This passes unanimously. I do also just want to quickly point out that when the entire bylaw committee is there, it is not quite half the board. So a lot of us have taken a lot of time to work on this and read through this. So, all right, next one. First reading.
Could I just make a
Sure.
comment? I thought that was well done, and one of the things in that section that I really liked was where it talked about how minutes should reflect the board actions, et cetera, and not be a verbatim transcript. And I think it's important to realize that since we're going to be using Robert's rules, what Robert's rules is minutes are very perfunctory, and by and large, our minutes are well done, and they occasionally have a little bit of information that you wouldn't necessarily have to have, but I find that it usually helps to have that information at a later date. So I wanted to say that I thought that was well handled in those in particular, because a lot of minutes are just too detailed.
I agree. But you can also go the other way and just record the motions, and then if you miss the meeting, you don't really have a sense of what's there. So I feel like we've done a good job.
Well, that's true, but you
striking
can
the
always
balance.
watch the videotapes, and that's
Well,
why.
now you can.
Great
Now
thing.
you can. This is true.
If you really
that
wanna
wasn't
be
always
tortured.
true. That's a good point.
But anyway, another.
All right, thank you. All right, last one. First reading of bylaw 9210, qualifications of members. This one is very short. Let me find it.
9121.
9210. Basically, it just says that you need to be 18 years old and that you may not be employed by the district. This is new CABE recommended policy. I don't know if 18 is state statute or not, but this was one that it looked like we had missed in the original adoption of bylaws, and we felt we should include. Would anyone like to move that we approve this? You can't find it?
Just need.
Okay. Go, Lisa.
I move that we accept the first reading of bylaw 9210, qualification of members.
Do I have a second? Alan seconded. Thank you very much. Questions?
Yeah, I have a question. I don't know whether it looked into this at all or anything, because it just occurred to me. The determination of who qualifies as an elector is not a determination for the board to make. It's a determination for the municipality that admits them to as elector status. But the question is, I think we as a regional board can establish what our own rules are for who can be a member.
I don't think that's true.
Or is it true? Is it the regional plan that does it? I don't know who does it. That's the question.
Who can qualify qualify to be a Board of Education member?
Well, see, we're putting in qualifications of members, and I'm just raising the question, do we have the authority to do that?
Mirrors state law. I don't have it. I got them all, but I don't have that one.
You know,
I'm sorry that didn't occur to me sooner. I would have looked it up, but
I know it's interesting because there isn't a state law attached to it, and usually CABE attaches them. It talks it mentions state law, but it doesn't reference it down below. It only has a policy conflict of interest. So we can definitely look into that. I just know that this was recommended by CABE, and we didn't really research it very much because it seemed not very controversial. So.
yeah, I mean,
But we can
it's
look
just
into
that some things, for example, you talk about no compensation for any position where there are school boards in this country that actually pay their school board members. My old stomping grounds of Fairfax, Virginia, it's $40,000 a year they pay their school board members.
Oh, that'd be nice. Actually, there are some boards in the state that pay their. There's some people in the state that get paid. But this is being employed by the school system, not so. It's a little bit different. That's a conflict of interest.
Now, I noticed it says that no member of the board should be employed, but I suppose it is still possible for the member to have a spouse employed.
Stay tuned for more.
But there are certain things you can't vote on, like compensation or
Right.
contracts for unions. Yeah, no, I get that. But I just wanted to be sure that, but that's the only question I had. It's not a question about the form. I think it's well drafted. I think the question is whether, I just wasn't sure of what our authority was here. But why don't we can pass it, like we can
All
always
right,
come back and
but
fix
I'm
it if we don't have
I'm
the
going
authority.
to. I've circled. We'll look and see what exactly state statute says and we'll have that for the second reading. So, just a point of clarification then. Since we're going to be answering a question, would it be your feeling, Greg, that this should not go on the consent agenda, but should go on the regular agenda for the second reading?
I think that would be a good idea.
Okay, got that, Debbie? So this one will go on the regular agenda for second reading. The others, there was no comment, so those are eligible for the consent agenda. All right. Well, first, I guess we should pass it. All those in favor, 9210, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? All right, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. All right. Sure, I know. Moving right along. So the next item on the agenda is a budget discussion. And when we talked about the agenda, I wanted to keep this here just in case any board members had big picture questions about what was presented tonight. We do have budget discussion time allotted on our next agenda. That's when we'll go through the line items. We can get into the nitty-gritty, but I just wanted to make sure that the big moving parts, the agri-site, if anyone had questions about Megan or Nicole's presentation tonight, that you got those clarified before you went home so that you could really dive in. So did everyone follow? Or if there's anything else you think would be helpful or you would like to see? John?
I followed up as a follow-up to the tuition part, which was some, of the ag. But the non-resident students, I see a large drop on page 16 from the projected 448 this year to 340, and then in the 2019-2020 about the same amount. I know it's kind of hard to put an exact number on the non-resident tuition in. When will that number be known? It says page 16 at the bottom, but I don't know, it's
With our agri-science
in,
model?
It's this one. It's this one right here.
Oh, this one.
It's the one where there was the blank in terms of the percentage difference. You said it was incorrect.
Well, actually, I think he's looking at the non-resident students and what we budgeted.
We held constant.
We held it constant.
We
Yeah.
didn't want to over-project.
but were some of those were some of those the 4 Sherman students, or it hasn't even been calculated?
No, the Sherman students would be ninth graders coming in. We don't have them currently in our 8th grade population. So I did talk to Sherman the other day. They had sent me an email regarding how many students they were anticipating coming to us next year. Let's see if I can pull it up quickly. And they were thinking that for next year, beyond our agri-science students, they were looking between 6 and 9 students coming to Chippewa next year.
In the non-ag?
For
Yes,
agri-science, that's amazing.
we're really a great school.
Yeah.
We really are.
That's a big year.
How many, okay, would you say any of these were from New Milford? Tuition in?
For our agri-science students, we only had one student who was a tuition-in student who was interested in our agri-science. So yes,
Who was in 8th grade?
Yes, he is a student who's currently at
here,
Chippewa looking to join the agri-science program.
And when do we know the non-resident counts?
We will know that on, well, Wednesday we'll be able to say our first round draft, and we'll be able to know how many we have. Then we go from that number, how many we have committed versus how many are open spots. We go to the wait list.
Yeah, but the regular non-ag students?
Oh, how many do we have that are coming? We can accept those up until, I believe we have a July 24th as the last day that we will accept tuition and requests. And the reason that we have that date is because tuition in the first payment is due August 1st. We also need to make certain that we're looking at our enrollment numbers. This is a year more than ever. We have to make certain that we have a balance.
So the 340,116 is just a mere guess.
We held it constant. So what we did was taking the fact that the students who are already at Chippewa, we have expressed interest from those parents to continue. We have expressed interest that the parents of students who are at Burnham, Washington, et cetera, and we also have additional inquiries that have already been presented to us. Right now, all indications are showing that we are trending towards this number, if not higher.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Did anyone else have questions on the budget presentation? All right, if not, then take your budgets home, study them, come back ready, because we need to adopt the board's budget so that we can go to the district hearing the first week of April. So be ready for March 18th to ask questions and share comments. Yep. All right, great.
Could I just offer a comment?
Sure.
This is massively easier to follow. And
That
I
woman right there.
very much
That
appreciate
woman right there.
this budget.
Thank you. I haven't even looked at it clearly.
The exhibits are not
That's great. Yes.
Kudos to Nicole.
Good job.
Understand a lot more than hours of the old format.
Excellent.
Kudos.
Great feedback. Thank you, Nicole. Jim? Oh, wait, there's something else.
No. We've already held that and it's in the signature. So if
We're
we
done?
want to, I'm going to say if we want to, we don't need to hold the executive session because it's the signature that we need
Oh,
for that one.
okay.
I just wanted to
Yes.
report the
Oh,
boys,
yes.
sadly, they lost.
Oh.
They did, but it doesn't really matter, does it? 75 to 49. But I just will say that, to piggyback a little bit off what Michelle said, the boys had an amazing season. I mean, the boys and the girls, but the boys had a great season, and I feel like the sense of community at the basketball games has been really great. And I'll just tell one really quick story that I just loved. There was a first grader from WPS after the game was over a couple weeks ago. Everybody kind of, hangs out down on the court. And this little first grader from WPS went up to one of the senior boys, and it was as if he was Michael Jordan. And he gave him a big hug, and he said he was the best player he's ever watched. And so and then the senior picked him up and carried him around. So I just think that it's just a great example of our community and our students. So I just love that.
Thanks for sharing. Too bad, but they did well to get as far as they did. So kudos to them. All right. Any other questions or comments before we adjourn? Apparently we don't need to have that executive session. Yeah. I know, I'm a little clear, because it's on the agenda, do we need to do anything with that? It's just, I think we
Do you
just
wanna
note that it's not needed.
Do we want to move it to our March 18th agenda?
Wait, I thought you said we authorized it and you're just waiting for a signature.
What do we have to do? We had the discussions, but we haven't done the vote on it, so I don't know if we want to do the vote when we need Anthony's signature on it. I leave it to the board. Hang on,
Nicole?
Yes.
It has been brought to my attention with regard to that contract because it does expire 2019. I had built into our bond rating fact sheet that was a negotiation and due to be signed prior to going to bond. When you have union contracts hanging open, it can affect your bond rating. So if we
So
could
you would
not.
like us to close this? All right, so we go into executive session. Let's go ahead and take care of this. Anthony can sign it during the week later when he gets back, wherever he is. All right, so do I need a motion for that? Did I just do that? Jim moved. Alan seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any abstaining? Any nays? Sorry, the other one. All right.
Noes,
Any
yes.
noes?
Everything.
All right. So we now are moving to executive session at 9 o'clock.